What's up, boys? It's Nick from Team Tempo 501 here. I'm the king of the scrubs, and I'd like to apologize for lack of content. I have been very busy with school. Life is slowly but surely eating away at me. And of course, Amazon sucks. I was waiting for some cards in the mail. They finally arrived today, so I was able to do the deck profile without any proxies. I could, of course, do it online, but that kind of takes away from the deck profile. You can just pause it, look at the deck, and do nothing, so yeah. But as always, I know my quality is not the best. So I will have a link to the deck list in the description down below. I'll have a link to my Twitter in the description down below. Go follow me on that shit. I post some cool stuff. But without further ado, I guess let's go into the Fluffal deck that I've been playtesting for the Garden City Regionals. I just think this deck is super fun. It gets to play some secretly just busted cards, and nobody knows what the cards do, so you can get some pretty easy wins. So let's go ahead and take a look at the deck list, shall we? So I'll start off with the main deck. Play 3 Dog. Dog is the Stratos of the deck, so you obviously play 3, and it's an Earth monster, so yeah. The other 3 of Fluffal is Bear. You send it from your hand to grave to set Vendor, and I'll talk about Vendor when I get to it. And it actually has a non-field effect that's actually kind of relevant. You can tribute it from the field to get polymerization from your graveyard to your hand. So if you need a fusion for your hand to work, and there's a poly in your grave, and you don't have access to Frightfur Factory, this is one of the ways you can get to it, because you can go normal summon Bear, and if it doesn't get Veilered, you can, because it tributes for cost, so you can tribute it, get the poly back. Because if it gets Veilered, it's still get negated, which is really sad, but and it's an Earth as well. So that's it for the 3 ofs. On to the 2 ofs. I played 2 Wings. This card's broken. Like, if it was an Earth, I'd play 3, because you could draw it and make Mrs. Radiant, and like it'd be stupid. And it is a hard once per turn, which is really annoying, which is also why I'm playing 2, because really with this deck, you have to play it as an aggro deck right now. You know, we're not in a format where you can go first and just end on 2 floaters. Because your opponent can kill you through 2 floaters. They don't care. So, you know, you basically just need to push through all your opponent's negations and just try to make a decent board, or like just break their board so you just don't auto die. So this card helps you do it. Really, if you resolve Winks once, it's just so much card advantage that you should be able to win the game. So 2 of those. 2 Penguin, because Penguin's dumb. This card like gets monsters out of your hand, so it can trigger Sheep, Owl, or Dog. It has a little bit of synergy with Bear, because you can go like this, get Poly back, and then trigger its other effect. To draw 2 cards and discard a card if it's used for a fusion summon of a Frightfur. So that's pretty cool, and it's level 4, so it makes rank 4s. And then Owl, this card searches Poly, or you can pay a 500 and it acts as Poly, so it acts like Anti-Spell and Imperial Order. 1 Sheep. I was debating between playing 2 of this card, but I don't want to open this card. I want to search it midway through my combo, so I can just make a link and extend my board. So that's why it's here. Also, just like, I'll show you a little bit of an interaction near the end of the video where you can go like Dog, Sheep, and then just generate a +2. So I guess I should keep these on here. And then 1 Cat. There's 2 reasons I play Cat. 1, it adds polys to your hand, because one of the ways the deck loses is that you run out of polys, so you can't make plays. And second is that it's an Earth, so you can randomly flip it off Vendor and then make Mrs. Radiant. So play 13 Fluffals, mostly because I'm playing Pot of Desires, and I don't want to banish all the good ones. And like the deck needs the +1 off Desires, but I'll talk about that when I get to Desires. 3 Edgem Chain, this card's dumb. When it's sent from the field to the grave, you get to add a Frightfur card, and when it attacks, you add a copy of itself. Both its effects are once per turn. Like, really, the most busted thing you can do is, like, you fuse with Chain and Penguin, because then you're able to resolve one of the effects for sure. And how it works is because both of these cards are, I believe they're if effects. Yeah, they're both if effects, and because they happen at the same time, you get to choose how they're put on the chain link. So whichever one you make chain link to is susceptible to Ash Blossom, but the one that you make chain link 1 is not. So if you really need a specific card like Frightfur Fusion, you make Edgem chain link 1, or if you're just digging for a board wipe so you can push through for damage, you make Penguin chain link 1. That's the most, like, it's one of the most disgusting things that the deck can just inherently do. So then the 1 Sabers. This card's a Garnet, but some of the fusions require Sabers, so you have to play it, because sometimes you just need to search it mid-combo so you can just like make a Kraken and get one of your opponent's monsters off the field. So there is that. Then I'm playing 3 King of the Swamp. This is mostly here to add poly. The replacement effect almost never comes up in a deck like this because you just have so many inherent ways to get to your fusion cards or your fusion materials. But like just discarding this and adding poly, like it's so good. And then for my hand trap of choice, I don't want to pay $15 for Ghost Ogres, and I'm not paying $30 for Ashes, and Droll just isn't good right now, so I'm playing Veiler. Veiler in this deck is also really good because the way that this deck loses to an extent is your opponent just having such a massive board that you can't Tiger all of their cards away. So being able to Veiler their most important card so they can't like expand their board out any further is really important. Like depending on which build of Pendulum you're up against, you have to hit the Electromite. If you're up against the FTK build, you can't hit Electromite because if you hit Electromite and then you just die to 2 Starving Venoms, you just feel bad. You have to Veiler one of the Starving Venoms. And you know, once they put Gate in Scale, you know they're playing FTK. Or once they put Gate and Infinity in Scale, you know they're on FTK. Against Gem Knight, like this is really important for the FTKs in the format, and you know it's just like it's really good. Like it sucks against Penn and it sucks against Draco, but because Michigan players love their rogue decks, this is more of just like a meta call. And like this is the only hand trap I had on me, and like this is a go second deck. You have to play some hand traps. That's it for the monsters. Onto the spells. 3 Toy Vendor. This card's broken. Once per turn, you discard a card and then draw a card. Then, if the card you draw is a Fluffal monster, you're able to special summon any monster out of your hand. So once again, trigger Dog, trigger Owl, get synergy with Sheep and Bear. And it also works well with Penguin. You can go special Penguin, special Thing, make a rank 4, and life is good. But the really busted effect is when it's sent to the graveyard, you get to search any Fluffal or any Edgem Sabers, and that effect is not once per turn. I don't know why. That's broken as fuck. You know, just being able to go like Vendor, Tiger, Tiger Pop, Vendor, search a card is really cool. And like people just ghost ogre this because they don't read it, and then they're just like, oh fuck. And then 3 poly. I just hate the fact that I only have 2 supers, 1 common, but I really only wanted to play 2 poly, but because I'm playing Desires and because Cat is so important to the deck, you just kind of have to play 3 of this card. I tested Fusion Sub, and it was fine, but the problem with Fusion Sub is that if you draw it in your opening hand, it's dead, and I want all my opening cards to be as impactful as possible to bait the negates that my opponent has. Along with, I tried playing Dark Fusion, and it was pretty good, but the problem with Dark Fusion is that it was very one-shot dependent, that really you only got to activate it once, and then if that failed, you were basically going to lose the game because your one monster is only protected for 1 turn. So if you aren't able to kill them or fuse with that monster to make Sabertooth and bring it back to kill them, like you fucked up. So that's why I'm just playing 3 polys. 2 Frightfur Fusion because it's the Miracle Fusion of the deck. If it wasn't once per turn, I would play 3. And then 1 Frightfur Factory. This card's really good to draw because it acts as another poly. And if it gets popped, you're able to add a banished Frightfur Fusion to your hand, so it gives you more advantage that way. Then I'm playing 3 copies of Mind Control. Mind Control is just like, this is such an underrated card right now. It's so good. Like, just being able to take one of my opponent's monsters and link with it is super important. It also just baits negates, and it just has so much versatility. It depends on your the matchup, but almost anything you take is going to be impactful to your board, even if it's just basically your opponent's monster becomes a link to. Like, there's much worse cards you could be playing in your deck. So, and again, this card very, very good at baiting negates. It's also very good at taking cards that negate negates. So, let's just say you're playing against Pendulum Magician and they end on a board of Zephyr Metaltron, number 38, and like a Jackal King. You target the Jackal King, and here's why. Jackal King is a negation that can negate monster effects, meaning that if they let you take it, you're able to negate their other piece of disruption, whether it being number 38 or Vortex Dragon or whatever it may be. So they have to negate it with the Vortex Dragon, meaning that you're able to go off and make your play. It's also pretty good against Draco, because if they do a Monster Trap Masterpiece trying to disrupt you on your turn, you take it, and because Toy Vendor is a spell or trap, you pop one of their cards, and then you link away with the Masterpiece. It's pretty good against Trickstar, being able to take their Borreload, and you can say, haha, fuck you. Then you link with it, because it's funny. Yeah, it's just, this card's just great. Gotta play 3. 2 Foolish Burial Goods. This card is an extender and a starter card. It is once per turn, which is why I'm playing 2, but it's also just, again, very good at baiting negates, very good at baiting Ash, so. And then Pot of Neg 9. Alright, so I was testing different cards in the slot for the longest time. I was playing Twin Twisters. It was a little too underwhelming. I was playing an Upstart Goblin and a Soul Charge, but Soul Charge is bad in the deck because you need the battle phase. And Upstart's bad because giving your opponent 1,000 life points sometimes messes up some of the OTKs the deck can do, because sometimes they only hit 8,000 damage, 8,600 damage. You can't push 9,000 damage in, so that's really annoying. And just like this deck, again, it needs to bait negates and it needs to see cards. This card does both, so that's why I'm playing it. And then, of course, the God cards. You got to play these cards. Dark Hole and Raigeki. If you draw these cards, your opponent will obviously negate it, and if they don't get negated, then you probably win. So 40 cards in the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. That is my side deck. I need the extra deck. We have my Field Center, Batman, shout out. 3 Frightfur Sabertooth. This card's broken. I don't... this card's, insane. So when you fusion somebody, you get a Frightfur out of your grave, and all your Frightfurs gain 400 attack, and here's the really broken thing. If you... Excuse me. Man, I'm tired. I need to go to bed. If you make this with 3 or more materials, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. So let's quickly go over the meta decks for 30 seconds, right? Pendulum Magician. They basically can't kill this card unless they make Borreload. True Draco. They have almost 0 outs to the card. Trickstar, once again, can't kill it unless they make Borreload Dragon. Lightsworn. They can out it with Fairy Tale Snow, but just through raw attack points, they can't. They basically need Fairy Tale Snow to out this card. Invoked has a very hard time killing this card unless they can make 2 things that they can't even make 2 things that negate stuff. They just can't kill indestructible guys. Let's see what else is relevant right now. ABC can out it pretty easily, but ABC isn't heavily represented right now. Basically, what I'm saying is that if you're able to get this onto the field and it doesn't get Effect Veilered, you are set. Because, really, Effect Veiler is really good against this card, but very few decks are playing Veilers, so. 2 Kraken. This is one of the more generic Frightfurs, only taking an edge jump and a Fluffal. It can kill a monster, or targets a monster and sends it to the graveyard. You can't attack directly the turn you activate that effect, but oh well, whatever. You have ways around it. It can attack twice during the battle phase, and during the turn that or during the end of the battle phase, which is a defense mode. So this card's really good against Scapegoat because, assuming that, let's just say you try to pop it with a Tiger, and then you make this card, you're able to go effect kill a token and then swing over 2 tokens because it can attack 2 monsters in the battle phase. It can attack twice during the battle phase, regardless of whether or not it used its other ability. So it's able to just wipe out all the tokens. So and it has 3,000 defense, so it's not that easy to kill. 2 Tiger. This card just pops the board and it makes your stuff really big. So go Sabertooth and a Tiger, and all your Frightfurs gain 1,000 attack. So now you have a 3,400 indestructible Sabertooth that can just say, haha, fuck you, Masterpiece, suck a dick. And then 1 Sheep. It's an Armades and it floats. Only really for very specific matchups. Daredevil. His burn effect is somewhat relevant, but again, it's mostly here for being big. And if you go Sabertooth into Daredevil, it's on 3,400, so it can kill Masterpiece. Then 1 Frightfur Wolf. This is mostly for the mid to late game. My opponent's out of resources. I top deck Frightfur Fusion. I kill them. And then for the Link monsters, 1 Mrs. Radiant because the 2 arrows. Underclock Taker. This card's actually really good because you can again, I'll talk about it actually, let's talk about it now. Why not? So let's just say Fluffal Dog is in your hand and Edgem Chain is in your graveyard. That's all you need to do the play that I'm about to talk about. So you go normal summon Fluffal Dog, you activate its special ability, and you add Sheep to your hand. You special summon Sheep since you control Fluffal. You activate its effect. Again, this is all assuming that that your opponent doesn't have disruption. But if they did, they would have stopped you by now. You bounce the dog to your hand, summoning Chain from the graveyard. You then link with Chain and Sheep into Underclock Taker. And I'm just pointing it toward me so I can prove my point. Edgem Chain activates in the graveyard, and then you add Frightfur Fusion to your hand. You can then activate Frightfur Fusion, banishing Chain and Sheep, and you can go immediately into Frightfur Kraken. So, just that ended on these two because of Underclock Taker. You just went +1 from Dog, which is really dumb. And it's all because Sheep's in the deck. And you can actually, like, if you have more cards in grave, you can do Underclock Taker into Sabertooth. Sabertooth, bring back Sabertooth. Where is the Sabertooth that I just had? And then you can have Underclock Taker shrink a guy by 3,200 attack, meaning the Underclock Taker can more than likely just kill it. And then you have an indestructible Sabertooth that can hit them directly. So, like, it's just really good at shrinking your opponent's monsters and, like, fucking shit up. And it's a link, too, and it's really generic. So, if your board is clogged of monsters that you can't get rid of, you can just link them into this guy, and at the very least, you get one zone. And then the decode. Very rarely do I make it. However, when I make it, I'm happy that I have it in my deck because you're able to just, like, make it big and just swing over stuff, so. And then I played 2 Xyz monsters, the one Dweller, the one Baguska. Dweller's mostly here if I go first against Draco. You don't want to go first against Draco, but sometimes you have to. And the Baguska's here for bad rogue players, because bad rogue players can't out this card. So that's it for the extra deck. Moving on to the side deck. Deck divider. Then 2 D-Crow, mostly for Lightsworn, because Lightsworn's rough. I just hate Fairy Tail Snow, and this card's really good against Fairy Tail Snow, so yeah, fuck you. 2 Lancia. This is mostly for if I go first, because this deck doesn't want to go first. But if I win game 1, I'm always under the assumption my opponent's going to make me go first, so I just bring in this card so I don't get evenly matched. And then I'm playing Kaijus. The deck can pretty easily like deal with Masterpiece, but just having a 1 card out is nice. And just like Slumber's busted, so and it has synergy with the deck, like you can Foolish Burial Goods the Slumber, and then banish it to add a Kaiju, so you have your 1 card out, which is really nice. 2 System Down, because ABC is a really rough matchup. Like, ABC is just so unwinnable that I need to have access to this card. Then 2 Twin Twisters. This is mostly for the Draco matchup, because if my opponent has Anti-Spell, I want to be able to out it without having to just waste my turn to search Owl and then just dying to 2 Masterpieces. So this card's really good. And against just really any random back row deck like Counter Fairy or Paleozoic, I can bring in Twin Twisters and use it to my advantage. 2 copies of Chalice, mostly for if I'm going second against, say, the Shadal Dino deck. Because at the very least with Shadal Dino, I can Chalice Winda and then make Frightfur Tiger, and I can pop both the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno and the Winda, because Chalice will negate the ability where it cannot be destroyed by my opponent's card effects. So I can pop their board, and if they want to chain Conductor Tyranno, I'm perfectly fine with that. I can at least clear their board, then get their Frightfur Fusion back, but I'm more than likely going to win that turn. So it's mostly for decks like that, and it's kind of good against Pendulum Magician, because it is a card that baits negates. But I don't really like it against Pen Mage, mainly because sometimes they'll just let it resolve to let you give their guy 400 attack, and then you can't kill it in battle, and then it's just going to give them another monster they can use for link material. I'd much rather have Mind Control where it gets it off of the field. So, but yeah, this card's pretty good. And if I'm up against rogue decks, like if I'm up against Barrier Stun, I can just use this against like Fossil Dino or Inspector Border so I can actually play the game. And then if I have to go first, I bring in Warning, because if I draw it, I can set it and then flip it, and they can't play it. So, yeah. So that does it for the Fluffal deck profile. I'm sorry for this being rather long. It's just a lot of people don't know what the cards do. So I just want to give an explanation on what they do. Like I said earlier, this deck is just very fun. I just enjoy this deck. Like, just being able to make big, powerful fusion plays is really cool. Is this deck good? Probably not, but I don't care. I just want to have some fun. And if I can get my invite with this deck, then yay. But like I said, deck list description down below. My Twitter is in the description down below. Leave any questions you have about the deck or any comments in the comment section down below, of course. That's kind of the point. And eventually I'll do a Monarch deck profile. It just hasn't changed, so. My name is Nick from Team Tibble 501. Thanks for watching, and get good, scrubs. I'll see you next time.